I've done lamb bacon, I've done duck bacon, I've not done actual bacon, so this time, beef bacon it is. And I've gone for a slightly different method this time, no nitrites, because I'm getting old, I'm a little bit more afraid of cancer than I used to be, so we're ripping that one out. But when I think about it, botulism is pretty quick. Anyway, basically what I've done is got 150 grams of Himalayan rock salt, because it's what was in the cupboard. I've got 100 grams of muscovado sugar, and I've got 3-4 stalks of rosemary, and I've given that a chop. So a sheet of baking paper here, and I've gone and perforated it with a knife. Now perforating with a knife is going to allow the juices, when they develop, to basically go through so the meat isn't marinating in its own juices. I've been guilty of letting it sit there and percolate and get saltier and saltier, and it's been way too intense. I mean, I still liked it, but it's not for everybody. So I've gone and laid down half the salt, half the sugar, half the rosemary, given it a mix up, lay down my beautiful field and flour brisket on top, and then put the other half of the mixture on top and rubbed it all in. Now as you can see, it's already starting to perform the process of osmosis and suck out all of the juice out of the meat, and making it really inhospitable for botulism or any other nasties that will potentially tear me a new asshole. So this is going into my very tiny fridge now. Tiny fridge does whatever a tiny fridge does, and he's swinging on a vine. Look how many it's tiny fridge. Here we are, day 2. It's looking quite firm. Obviously the salt's not really doing much on the fat, but here it's dissolving quite well. And then underneath, I don't know if you can see that, but there's quite a little bit of, quite a bit of liquid in there. I spilled some on the floor. This thing practically, it looks like it should have Brendan Fraser chasing after it. It looks basically mummified. It's quite dry. It's quite firm, which I think is pretty good. Its firmness, I believe, means moisture. A lot of moisture's come out, and it doesn't really flex as much as it used to. And it sort of smells like, it just sort of smells like meat. It doesn't smell bad. It smells quite good actually, but just very subtle. But I can see some like little crusty bits of like salt that sort of like re-hardened on the side. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give it a cut, and it's gonna get a smoking first. I'm gonna be using the razor griddle to smoke it. So I'm just gonna have one burner just sort of going at it, and then just sort of put the wood chips in like in a sieve on top, and then just sort of let it slowly smoke away for about that amount of meat, maybe like half an hour, 45 minutes. I don't want it getting too hot either. It's sort of going to be a warm smoke. I decided to weigh the juice just to sort of see how much liquid I had managed to pull out, and it's about 300 grams minus the stuff I spilled. Now you can see here that it's actually gone quite red, like deep red, and I feel like that's a good sign that it worked fairly well. So I gave the meat a wash and then put it on the smoker. So getting quite a deep smoke going on. It's looking a lot better than I thought it would. We're getting that nice beautiful golden hue. I gotta say, that looks pretty sensational. Look at that. Whoa! So that's one side, that's sort of like the point end side. And then we've got this side here. This side's sort of got the, it's quite lean, so I'm a bit worried about how that's going to sort of come out. Because we've got this fat cap here, but it's not the whole way around. It's sort of, yeah. It'll be interesting. I think a quick fry, this is not gonna be bacon that's sort of like crispy bacon. I mean, it'll be good bacon, but I'm not sure it's gonna get like really crunchy, like streaky bacon. It's probably gonna be more akin to middle bacon, I'd say, or shoulder bacon. But what I think we should do before we give it a pasteurize, because I'm using the sous vide machine to pasteurize the meat. It looks like it's pretty safe, and I know that with whole mussels, the risk of food poisoning is quite a bit lower, but I still want to be like ultra safe, so I will be pasteurizing this at 53 degrees Celsius for about 2 hours, holding it 53 degrees Celsius for about 2 hours in the sous vide machine. But before that, I mean, what harm can it do? I'm just going to take a little slice and give it a fry up and give it a taste. So I cut off a thicker bit as well, just because I figured that I put this sort of an even amount of salt across the whole thing. So if salt has penetrated quite deep, then this bit should be less salty than this little bit here. That one tastes like it's a bit angry. It's a bit salty. Hopefully the theory is correct. Let's see what this one can offer. That makes sense. Yeah, but significantly less salty. I still think that just based on that alone, I could have done with a shorter brining time. I left it in there for 4 days ultimately. Day 3, when the color really started to go quite black, I think that probably was my time to just sort of go, okay, we're good. We've got a good sort of amount of coverage on it. It's not as nice as the lamb bacon straight off the bat. The lamb bacon, I think the lamb bacon's been the nicest so far, and it's not sweet at all. It's going to be interesting to see how it goes into a meal. So I've just spent the last sort of like way too long chopping up this meat. About 20 minutes, I guess. And I only got through half of it. And I ate a lot of it. And it's very delicious. It doesn't taste like bacon. It's far more meaty, far less fatty, which I don't usually associate with brisket. But it still tastes delicious, and the fry up test, it does fry up nicely. It does crisp nicely around the edges. It just doesn't have the same sort of fattiness as the lamb bacon. It's sort of more on par with the duck bacon, I think. It's corn, a big lump with knobs. It has the juice, it has the juice. The idea came to me rather impulsively while I was staring at mushrooms at the veggie shop down the road. So you get 3 eggs and then you whisk them with creme fraiche. And then with those vegetables, you give the vegetables a sear on the griddle side of a new hybrid razor griddle. You get those nice and caramelized, and then you stir the egg rather vigorously over heat, and then add crumpets to your vegetables. Crumpets are like I don't even know how to explain it, you should Google it. But then you get the beef bacon, put it over the open flame and get that nice and lined and crispy and delicious. Keep on stirring those eggs. And then it starts to thicken up, starts to congeal. And then when it's about this stage, you add a bit of creme fraiche and then you blend it until smooth. It's an insanely decadent texture. So it all seems to have come together quite nicely. Got this creamed egg with the beef bacon, which is like a little salty accent. We've got some fried crumpets. Now, if you're American, you don't know what a crumpet is, have a Google, they're delicious. Usually you have them in a sweet sort of sense, but this time I thought maybe they could be a bit crunchy. Then we've got just fried onion, fried mushroom, whole grain mustard, a little bit of white pepper, just to give it a bit of heat, some parsley and some sunflower seeds. So, let's give this a go and see how it all came together. I lied, I knew how this was going to come together. That's delicious, that's so good. Isn't a whole grain mustard absolutely sensational? You've got to give something like this a go. Now, it doesn't have to necessarily be beef bacon, you can just go do it with normal bacon. The beef bacon does stick out very strongly. It's more meat forward than fat forward like bacon is. And the smoke is definitely quite strong. I'm fairly sure I overdid it. But
in this sort of arrangement, it's fantastic. But that all comes down to my technique. I think there are certain things that I would do differently next time, like increase the sugar content, because there is basically no sweetness on this plate, and I think generally speaking there always should be. In saying that, I'm quite happy with these results, and I'd say, yeah, give this technique a go, especially on the griddle. Just whisking that egg and then blending it with a little bit of sour cream gives you this beautiful silky texture. Just sort of, it's almost like just eating sauce, but with a whole lot of like arrangements on top. So well worth a go. Give it a go. I'm gonna give it another go.